confronting CHemours. That's what dozens of protesters did when employees of the company responsible for discharging GenX in our water showed up for a meeting today. Protesters stood outside with signs. They chanted. Many of them had their children with them to also demonstrate their concerns. They also asked CFPUA members if the water bottles they were carrying had tap water in them.
Anxious for answers. That's why some of those protesters stuck around for a news conference following the closed-door meeting. It's where we learned community leaders across the Cape Fear asked CHemours to stop discharging GenX until more testing is done. WWAY's Hannah Patrick has a recap. It is the big story at 6.
A room full of elected officials from Wilmington, Pender, Brunswick, and New-Hanover counties, along with concerned citizens, listened as New-Hanover County Commissioner Woody White recapped a closed-door meeting with CHemours about GenX.
CHemours intends to continue to discharge GenX and is permitted to do so.
What White said next brought on an applause.
We have asked that CHemours bring this discharge to 0%.
Yes. White says CHemours did not agree to do that, but the applause continued for what Wilmington Mayor Bill Saffo said in response.
I would ask the state, the DEQ, the EPA to suspend that operation until we have some evidence from the company that says that.
North Carolina Secretary of Environmental Quality Michael Reagan says starting next week, his staff will begin special testing in the river and the water supply.
CHemours has agreed to bear all of the cost of the water collection and testing.
While taking questions from reporters, another applause for White after he was asked if they gave the members from CHemours tap water to drink.
We did.
Did they drink it?
They didn't drink it. I didn't see them drink it, but I drank it because I was thirsty.
A moment of levity, but things got serious. State epidemiologist Zach Moore was then asked how they know GenX is posing a low risk.
Based on the toxicology data that were available, we calculated what we call a health screening level, which is a level below which we don't expect there to be any adverse health effects.
But he says that data was based on limited information and they are still waiting on more studies. And based on that, White was asked if the water is truly safe to drink.
I asked the company that in a phone call. It took them about 1.5 minutes to answer the question. At the end of their answer, I said, "Ma'am, it's a yes or no question. I'm drinking the water, my family's drinking the water. I think it's safe. I've made that decision for myself and my family."
In New-Hanover County, Hannah Patrick, WWAY News. A room.
All right, well, this is a hot topic. Joining us now is Adam Wagner from our partners over at the Star News. Now, you guys broke this story. Kudos to you for that, you know, and your team. Adam, you were the only reporting today in that meeting where CHemours talked to state leaders, local leaders, and also talked to CFPUA and again, you, the one reporter in the room.
Yeah.
What was the mood like?
So it was pretty much like any general meeting that we cover. It was kind of relaxed. There were a lot of questions.
Were they nervous?
No, it was very cordial. It was just sort of the CHemours people got up and talked. And they spoke for a while, and then the county leaders asked some questions, and it got a little tense toward the end when Mayor Saffo and Commissioner White asked them to commit to either ceasing production until they knew there was no water, and they wouldn't quite do that.
So they're not going to stop it while they investigate?
They're not going to stop. No, this investigation is going to go on. We know that for the next 3 weeks, this production that does lead to GenX is continuing. They're going to try to use that 3 weeks to get good samples on it. They're then going to send to this lab in Colorado, and they're going to test it, and we'll see how much is left in the water.
The big question, you know, you talk about GenX, and I know people that are watching, everyone's been following this. Everyone I talked to is asking me about it. You've become kind of an expert on it. When you talk about GenX, it can cause cancer. It has contaminants, or it can cause diseases. That's the fear. When they were asked the big question, CHemours, would you drink the water? Do you think it's safe? Yes or no? Could it cause cancer, cause these things? I understand there was a pause, or there was kind of a beating around the bush, and Woody White had to step in and say yes or no. What's
yeah, so I think that what Commissioner White was referring to was the phone call they had rather early in the week. But with everything with the health side of this, we don't know the answers. There's some studies, that's where DHHS is getting the 71,000 parts per trillion number. We know that the studies that have been tested is about 631 parts per trillion. So is it safe? It's not definitive right now. CHemours continues to say it is safe, and CFPUA, HCO, Brunswick County are saying that they're testing the water.
While they're testing the water and while we're uncertain as to whether or not the water is safe because of GenX, I want to ask about this. Explain, what did CHemours mean when they said they reduced the GenX product by 80% back in 2013? This has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, so we learned today for the first time, I think everyone in the room, that the process that leads to GenX sort of incidentally, that is the process that leads to it getting in our water, has been going on since 1980. And everyone was a little taken aback by that. Yeah, that was interesting. But once they found out about it, which was part of this other sort of ongoing scientific process, CHemours put this other technology in place that has dropped it, they believe, from 631 parts per trillion down to about 96.
So 96 parts per trillion, what, gallons of water or?
Parts, so for every, let's assume that a drop is a part.
Okay.
So only 96 of a trillion would be GenX.
So 96 drops out of
a trillion
drops,
which is a lot
would
of
be
drops.
GenX. That's a lot of drops, especially when the big answer is we don't know, right? And that's alarming. Talk about, what is your biggest takeaway from the meeting that had you scratching your head and thinking, okay, this needs to get a little bit deeper?
Well, I think the thing that's going to alarm the public is that 1980 information. That's 35 years of drinking the water that may have GenX in it.
All right, well, there is so much more to be learned from this. You took awesome notes today in that meeting. Again, he was the only reporter allowed. One quick question. CFPUA, I understand, did they say anything?
There were a few questions from Mike Brown, who, as we know, later put out that statement calling for another member of the board to investigate CFPUA's handling of this. Basically, the big, what did they know and when did they know it questions.
Because it's been 7 months that this has been since the
It's
study.
been at least 7 months.
But
I know that Jim told you guys November.
Right.
In the release today, it said May. So we don't know how long they knew.
Adam, thank you so much, and we will continue to work with you guys over at the Star News, our partners, to learn everything that we can learn, and our reporters as well working very hard to get to the bottom of this, what I call a scare at this point. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.